Wednesday, December 20th. I'm Scott.
And I'm Rin.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight we discuss dubs. Let's do this.
So Weekly Anime Review kind of punked us in that despite the fact that we have, 200 and a lot episodes under our belt, well, like 250 or something like that, we don't have our t-shirts out yet.
We don't even have anything to put on the t-shirts.
Well, we have lots of things to put on the t-shirts, but they're very conceptual and not very actually drawn on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
But yet they took it upon themselves to take advantage of the popular Swag for Swag program, whereby any podcaster who sends us swag will get swag in return. But we don't have anything yet, so it's kind of just rubbing salt in the wounds.
Yeah, and I don't think we've mentioned that program before, but if you send Geeknights your swag, we will send you equivalent Geeknights swag.
Provided you are a legitimate cosplayer. Cosplayer?
No.
Not cosplayer. Legitimate podcaster.
Well, you don't have to be a podcaster. You might be a webcomicer.
Oh, yeah.
Or, something else.
But if our friend Peter sends us a white t-shirt where he has written the name Peter on it in black marker, we are not going to send him a Geek Night shirt.
No, instead we'll send him a turd in an envelope. That is a fair exchange.
It has to be a polished one.
Yes. Right.
Yeah. But speaking of other podcasters, for those of you who listen to Anime World Order, which is a decent number of you, I've noticed that there seems to be a lot of crossover between our Wednesday listeners and Anime World Order. They recently had their 1-year anniversary special, which consisted of episode 42.
And at the end of that episode, there was a short audio drama thing.
If you want to call it that. I will say that in terms of the actual source material, I think it was very faithful. At least to the spirit. I mean, that stuff is pretty much unintelligible anyway.
So we act in it. We have 2 bit parts. So if you want to hear us do something funny, you can go listen to the end of the newest Anime World Order as of right now.
Yep. And we will congratulate them on successfully completing 42 episodes in 52 weeks.
And it just reminded me, if that's their 1-year anniversary, we've been podcasting longer than they have.
Yeah, we have. So I guess that makes us, veterans?
We're definitely their seniors. They have to call us senpai.
They'd better call us senpai.
That's right.
Because we're probably going to see him at Katsucon.
That's right, bitches. Okay.
Right, so in the news, we'll get right to it, because it isn't often that there's anime news we really feel like talking about or we care about in any stretch. I mean, we're not going to tell you that some company licensed some show. That's just not what we do.
Yeah, we're not going to tell you, oh, OMG, some movie got this many tickets sold. Ooh.
Yeah. And I know even Anime World Order often has trouble finding interesting anime news.
Well, because anime news just tends to be bland.
Except,
this DVD came out.
Except
Whatever.
When fans are involved. Because you see, you might all remember that before this previous Otakon, they made some changes to the Artist Alley rules. And as a result, the internet, as a collective body, decided to go apeshit.
Well, at least the internet, the part of the internet that cares about Otakon.
Yeah, well, the thing is, anyone who wants to cause a ruckus on the internet can do it easily. I don't care if there's only 2 of you. If you're loud enough on the internet, it can seem like thousands of people.
It can, if you go to enough websites.
Yep, or just make enough noise or have enough shill accounts on Dig.
No shill accounts.
But anyway, the Otakon thing, long story short, we covered this in great detail. We did a bunch of interviews, everything about it. Otakon changed his policy to generally restrict, bootlegs or fan art that is blatantly violating copyrights in mass quantities, things like that.
Yeah, the rule used to be that if you manufactured plush Pikachus, you couldn't sell those because, well, that's illegal. But if you drew a picture of Pikachu, that was cool. So they changed the rule to sort of not totally disallow you from selling a picture of Pikachu that you drew, but to sort of discourage it.
Yeah, well, you can listen to our previous episodes about that to get the details.
Right.
But suffice to say, there were people who were disappointed with this change or who didn't understand it, and as a result were very indignant. And while it was a relatively small number of people, they did make a very large internet ruckus. And that may have been justified except for the fact that the actual result of Otacon's rule change was that Artist Alley carried on pretty much as usual, and in fact, if anything, the quality was improved.
Yeah, I'd say the Artist Alley definitely. I mean, the number one thing that was always wrong with that Artist Alley anyway was a bad arrangement of tables for inefficient space usage, and they seem to have fixed that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much as good as it can be in that regard.
Yeah.
But the whole sky is falling thing of the people who were complaining about Otacon's Artist Alley rules really didn't come to pass, and the Artist Alley, almost everyone who went could do just about what they would have done anyway, and everything worked out really well.
I found some hot art.
So I have some of that hot art sitting right over there waiting to be framed still.
Oh, God.
So it ended, and the Save Artist Alley people went back into the woodwork. Until now, Katsucon is coming up, and they have made some changes to their Artist Alley, and the generally same group of people is making almost the exact same ruckus with, in fact, the same live journal community.
Great.
Yeah, they're basically the same issue, except that the rules changes are a little bit odd, so I guess we'll cover them a bit. But in terms of the main argument here is the same as with Otakon, that the people are mad about, Katsucon changing the way they handle the Artist Alley and making rules that exclude what some of them like to do in the Artist Alley. And the argument that they made when Otakon was coming was that the Artist Alley is going to suck and no one is going to want a table. Yet the Artist Alley at Otakon sold out, I don't know, within a half a second.
Well, I think the rules that they were originally angry about weren't the rules that ended up actually being the real rules at Otakon. So
Well, true.
It's not really an equivalent situation.
True. There was, in fact, a large miscommunication on Otacon's part as to what the rules
Right,
actually
it was
were.
sort of like someone coming up and saying, hey, if you cross this street, you go to jail for 10 years. What? That's crazy. No, just kidding. If you cross this street, then we just hit you on the head a little bit. Oh, okay.
A little bit.
Yeah. So, and that, it's like people yelled and screamed about the first thing, but the second one, they were like, oh, all right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was reading through the various protests against Katsucon on this, and a lot of them look like the same people. And if they're not the same people, they write with the exact same style. Almost every complaint I've seen is someone who starts off by either quoting or making up a quote about international copyright law or possibly the First Amendment, claiming that Katsucon, or as they did with Otakon, is being unfair or violating some human right that they have, or ruining their livelihood, or going to ruin the Artist Alley, and then they go on to make some statement like, well, good luck with an empty Artist Alley. And I'll just note before we continue that despite these rules changes, Katsucon's Artist Alley is sold out as expected.
Oh, well, look at that.
So,
Well, was it sold out before the rule changes or after? And how many of
after.
those people who bought a table knew the rules changes and actually comprehended them in their mind?
The rules changes are pretty straightforward, and from all the argument, it looks like most of the people arguing didn't actually get a table anyway.
Or maybe they just didn't buy one because they saw the rules and then decided not to.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
But even if that's the case, it doesn't matter because there were enough people who, despite the rules changes, wanted a table.
Yeah, but how many of those people actually read the rule changes, and how many of them?
I can guarantee that all of them, because of the way Katsucon handles Artist Alley now.
Really? How did they handle it now?
Well, the thing is, we'll go over the rules changes first, because part of that is how they handle the Artist Alley itself. Because it isn't quite as clear-cut as Otakon with their, be careful with fan art, don't bootleg. The first rule they've added is that, now this is really the big one, quote, Artist Alley is intended for amateur artists working in a print paper medium.
So what about the webcomic artists? They can't go to Artist Alley?
I guess not, technically. It is also intended for artists who make 3D renditions of their own art or 3D renditions of licensed anime characters. In that spirit, artists are required to use 75% or more of their table space for such art. So, I guess Geeknights could not have a table in the Artist Alley there.
What the hell? What about like a guy who sells cool T-shirts or something?
Nope, can't do that.
What if you you sew cool hats or
Nope.
or you do crafts? Crafts are no good.
Nope, anything like that is bad. In fact, I remember last year at Katsucon, there was an issue with someone who had a table in Artist Alley who was selling chainmail, and they either asked him to leave or disapproved of what he was doing. I don't remember the details.
See, now
Since I was very drunk
that
at the
doesn't
time.
even have anything to do with copyright or anything at all.
Oh, no, it's not. That's why I'm saying that the Katsucon issue is a little bit different. They're not just changing the rules for copyright, but they're definitely trying to shape the kinds of things that are in their artist alley. And they're trying to, at least in my eyes, make it distinct from other conventions' artist alleys.
Yeah, make it distinct, but also what people like about anime convention artist alleys is that they have these other things. Those things make a lot of money. Why would they get rid of those things?
Yeah, but they
even if your artist alley still sells out, as a con, you don't care, about not bringing in artist alley revenue that way. But you might care about, people who come to cons who really enjoy Artist Alley might not enjoy your Artist Alley anymore. And then Katsucon will get a reputation for having a bad Artist Alley that doesn't have cool stuff like chainmail and crafts and all that other goodies.
Yeah, they definitely seem to want to encourage original art by original artists on paper and very little, if anything else.
Well, that's go to a Comic-Con if you want that. This is an anime con.
Well, at least, in terms of a lot of the cool T-shirts you see at a lot of cons in the Artist Alley tend to be rip-offs of licensed things and illegal and banned anyway.
Yeah, but most of the cool T-shirts are, that guy's a webcomic artist, and those are his T-shirts, That's where I see the cool ones.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it does look like they really wouldn't allow webcomic artists unless they were drawing stuff or just selling their own art, and they weren't really promoting
What
the
if I'm a webcomic artist, like Order the Stick, but now I have a book? Is that okay?
I don't know, but it does say, let's see. Artist Alley reserves the right to refuse and turn away any artist selling solely fabrics, trinkets, or other merchandise not appropriate for Artist Alley. Selling of commercial merchandise is prohibited.
Well, that's a given, but
if that's true, then selling your own published book is commercial merchandise.
Oh wow!
You didn't think of that part.
So what if you are an independent comic artist who self-publishes your own books? You can't sell your books there?
Technically, according to what they've got written on the website, no.
So isn't that sort of going against themselves?
Quote,
it's like, we want this Artist Alley to be only for artists or, amateurs working in the print medium, but you can't actually sell their stuff.
Artists may not solely display and sell fan art. It is strongly suggested that fan art should not make up more than 25% of your table space. Fan art and print should be kept to 20 copies or less.
Well, at least they're not just saying no fan art. They're saying,
they have to, if they actually said no fan art, which the thing is, with the original Otakon thing, I would have been a little bit up in arms, too, with the original rules where they actually said they were going to ban fan art straight up. And then when they clarified that was not the case, everyone settled down except for the very, very dedicated opponents.
Yep.
But here, if there was an Artist Alley without fan art, I don't know if I'd care to even wander into it. I see enough original art online as it is, and I usually don't go to an anime con looking for original art. If anything, I go to an anime con looking for new webcomics to read and cool art that probably is based on some sort of licensed property.
Yeah, if you go to a Comic-Con, right, you're not going around looking for new stuff. The people with new stuff are trying to hawk it on you, but you tend to avoid those people. All those guys are like, I like Spider-Man, and I want to get Spider-Man art. And anyone that you walk up to at a Comic-Con, no matter what the artist is, they'll draw you a Spider-Man. Whatever. So if you go to an anime con and you like them Full Metal Alchemist, and you can't get a Full Metal Alchemist, that kind of defeats the point.
I can't get my picture of Roy and Al and Link and Epona all kissing each other, then it's not an anime con.
I know, it's what is it, an independent art con? It's not. What the hell? It's an anime con. There should be anime and manga everywhere. That's what it's about.
Well, that's what it traditionally is about, but it looks like they're definitely trying to push the way Katsucon's Artist Alley is to make it different from other cons. I can't say if it'll be successful or not. We'll be there and we'll see it firsthand. Now, the other interesting part of this, and this is what I was alluding to in the beginning, in terms of enforcement, part of the process of getting an Artist Alley table is that you have to give them a list of all the items you plan to sell in the Artist Alley. And then they personally approve or disapprove of you, and if they approve, you get a table, and if they disapprove, you don't.
So they've already approved the whole Artist Alley.
So everyone who has currently got a table in the Artist Alley is fully aware of the rules, and unless they're lying on that form, in which case they're going to be in for a load of trouble when they get to the con.
Mm-hmm. Huh. Well, I think that's actually a pretty good idea, is that if they tell the con what they're selling before they get there, or actually send a sampling of work to the con before they get there, That way, the con can arrange the artist alley in a much more efficient fashion, with like goes with like, or possibly, don't put all the really popular things right next to each other to clog up the aisles, et cetera, et cetera. That's a good thing, I think.
Another interesting thing they're doing with the artist alley now is that if you have a table, you have to claim it by 9 p.m. on Friday or you lose it.
No, that's cool, because a lot of people try to get those tables, and they buy it up for the whole weekend, and they only sit there for like a few hours on Saturday. And then someone else who couldn't get a table, who would have sat there all weekend and really wanted to sell their stuff, it's...
Yeah, normally I would be against any sort of restriction like that, but just due to the fact that cons like Katsucon and Otakon have such limited space as it is, if you're not going to use the table all weekend, then it will probably be better served in someone else's hands.
Yeah, if your demand for Artist Alley is bigger than your supply of tables, then you have to have a rule like that just to make it fair. If your demand is not that high, then having a rule like that is kind of annoying.
I guess in the end, these rules seem a little bit draconian, but we'll have to actually go to Katsucon to see how it turns out. Unless we get an interview with someone from Katsucon or something, I think we'll just leave it at that for now, and we'll report on it again after we go.
Still, it doesn't sound good, because at least Otakon, when the first rules came out, everyone was like, that's not what the rules are going to be, and then it wasn't what the rules ended up being. This time, it's like, well, wow, there's the rules, and they're crazy. So, I don't know. Does not bode well.
Of course, in the end, I'm not really worried, because Katsucon is not a con I have gone to for the Artist Alley ever.
Yeah,
so
I've never been to Katsucon yet. But I did not imagine that its Artist Alley would be among the greatest.
I'll be perfectly honest in that Otakon really has the only Artist Alley I've ever been impressed by.
All right.
I mean, most cons we go to have a tiny Artist Alley, like maybe 15 tables, and often there's not much there. Or even worse, we went to a whole bunch of cons this summer, and I saw the same group of people at all these cons filling the Artist Alley. Like, I'd already seen all this person's art, and they're at every con I go to, and that's that.
Yep.
And Otakon just is such an amazing Artist Alley. I don't know. I don't even bother really to go through them other than to look once now.
I think what it is that there are Artist Alley people who go to every Artist Alley that they can get into that's close enough to their location. And then when you have a big con, you see the Artist Alley people from places far away from where you are, because it's a bigger Artist Alley, gets a bigger draw. And you also get people who... they're too good to show up at a tiny little Artist Alley. They only show up for the big ones. It's like if you had an Artist Alley big enough, like that Comic-Cat thing in Japan, you could freaking get everyone in the whole country to show up. It's crazy.
Things of the day.
Aw, shit.
Now, I've been using a lot of videos lately, and I got to say that this is one of my...
You didn't use a video yesterday.
No, I didn't. But in general, I've been using a lot of videos. A lot of things on Dig, or things that end up on Dig in the time between when I find them and when I decide to use them. Today, however, I'm doing something very special. I found a video of Iron Man acting stuff out in the real world. Iron Man is the man.
Wait, you mean Iron Man, the Marvel superhero?
The underwear pervert?
Yeah.
Nah, not really. Not a fan.
Okay, good, because I hate that Iron Man.
Why do you hate Iron Man?
I just don't like Iron Man.
What? His power is just he's made of iron.
No, he's not. He's a guy in an iron suit.
Yeah, so effectively, the power is made of iron.
No, I just don't like Iron Man. I never liked Iron Man.
Why not?
I don't know. I just never did.
All right, I don't like Spider-Man.
All right.
I'll be perfectly honest.
That's fine.
But no, I call it Iron Man only because that is the name of the video.
Okay.
It is, in fact, a man in a suit of armor that is probably made out of steel and not iron.
Mm-hmm.
Now...
steel is part iron.
Well... It's not cold wrought iron that he is wearing, all right?
All right, you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay.
Anyway, I've been using a lot of practical jokes lately, too, and I got to say that this is not as good as the guy, but it's up there.
You mean the skeleton on the motorcycle?
Yeah, because they put this little guy in this little suit of armor, and you can't tell there's a person in it. And he stands there in a museum like he's just some piece of armor on display. So people walk up and they're looking at him. One guy's filming him, and he moves a little bit. And the guy, he's sitting there looking through the camera, and he backs up and has this puzzled look, and he takes the camera away. And he's, looking at the thing and looking in the camera, and it's not moving now. and he's trying to figure out. He thinks he's going insane, and then it moves again, and he about loses it and runs out of the room.
It's pretty good. And of course, there's always the one person who goes, ha 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 ha, you fooled me, instead of running away like I was.
But what makes it funny for me is the way the guy in the armor moves, because he must not know how to wear armor very well, and also the armor is probably not very comfortable because he moves very oddly. And I think a video of that guy walking around in that armor would be almost as funny as the practical joke itself.
I think you might be correct.
So what do you got?
Okay, I actually had to do a lot of research about this thing today because I couldn't comprehend it when I read the original story. So, you know Second Life, right?
I'm aware of it.
Okay, Second Life is sort of like an MMO, except there's no actual game. It's just this big world that you walk around in and do almost whatever you want.
If you ever read The Escapist, you might be under the impression that everyone in the world but you plays Second Life and it's the best game ever made.
Yeah. But anyway, yes, Second Life, you make an avatar, you walk around, you talk to people, you do things. Now, in Second Life, some things you want to do, usually getting land or getting objects from other people, requires money, called Linden Dollars. To get Linden Dollars, you give the company that runs Second Life your real dollars. They convert it, I think this is an exchange rate, but I don't know what the exchange rate is, to Linden Dollars. And then you can use those Linden Dollars in the game to do stuff. You can also convert Linden Dollars back into real money. So if you do things in Second Life and people give you their Linden Dollars, you can turn those into real dollars. And you could run a business as in Second Life. And that's basically how Second Life, the company, that runs it, makes Linden Labs, makes their money, is because they don't have to create game content, because they basically hire you to do it. And the more game content you create, the more other players will give you Linden Dollars, and then the more regular dollars you get.
I really like the concept of Second Life. It's just the game itself doesn't look like I would find it interesting.
I've never actually gone into it.
I've seen screenshots.
I've seen
and
screenshots
videos.
and I read about it on the internet. Anyway, there is a person in the game. They are known as Anshe Chung, and so apparently they're famous, and their avatar was on the cover of Newsweek and stuff.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know about this. The real name of this person is Aylin Grafe. I don't know if I said that right. I don't even know if I said the name of their avatar right. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'll preachy.
Yeah. This person started with $10 in Linden Dollars. Well, originally they had a business, farming in games like Asheron's Call. Then they went into Second Life, and they bought $10 worth of Linden Dollars, and they started selling shit in Second Life. And now this person has $1 million. Real dollars.
Wow.
From doing Second Life business. Basically, they were just really opportunistic, and when there was a new game feature, I think the game feature they mentioned was your characters are able to do different poses and movements. They started selling people all these custom movements as soon as that became a new feature. And thus, they were able to make a lot of money. Anyway, in Second Life, this famous Second Life millionaire was going to do an interview with CNET in Second Life. The CNET reporter was Greeter Dan Godell, whatever. Now, here's where the thing of the day comes in. They go to this, in Second Life, there's some building, the CNET building, and the CNET guy shows up, and then people show up to listen to this interview, and then the famous person shows up, and then, lo and behold, I can't count them, hundreds, maybe thousands of rubber phalluses are just look at these.
Good God.
They just start raining from the sky at this interview.
What is this? It's like Dominion Tank Police when they release the ultimate weapon.
Yeah, so the famous person runs away. The CNET guy can't keep it under control. And before you know it, there are these two monsters, literally monsters, sitting in the interview chairs. And it's basically some group called Room 101 that goes around. This is the equivalent of griefing in Second Life. Because you can't grief, really, in a game where you can't, there's no fighting or anything, But this is griefing. Someone was trying to do an interview in Second Life, and you ruined it by filling the room with penises.
Now, I think my opinion of this is that it is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, in other MMOs, while I think playing a lot of those standard MMOs is dumb in the first place, griefing is even more dumb, and a game designed in such a way that allows griefing to even happen is bad design. However, this isn't really a game. It's just sort of this virtual world. So anything that increases entropy in a humorous way, especially humorous for people who aren't playing, is awesome. The best thing to ever come out of World of Warcraft was Leroy Jenkins, and as far as I'm concerned, the best thing to ever come out of Second Life was a rain of penises.
Well, the evidence just keeps stacking up, Scott.
It sure does.
But anyway, I think the issue there is simply that a lot of other MMOs, you can do things in-game, or you can do things by coordinating out of game that the game designers decide they don't want you doing, even though the game allows you to do it. So they'll punish you in-game or out of game for the things you've done. Second Life doesn't really do that so much. The system works internal to itself. If you cause trouble, people do things to you, and your reputation gets hurt in a real way, and the actual people running the game don't seem to take external punitive action on any regular basis.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like these guys got in trouble or anything over what they've done.
I mean, if anything, CNET just needs better security.
Yeah, you gotta. If you have a building in Second Life and you're doing stuff in it, and you don't want penises to come flying at you, you better build big walls on it, which might cost you some extra linen dollars for a penis eliminator.
Some sort of penis screen.
If they were really cool, what they could have done is you can just make stuff in Second Life, right? I don't know enough about it, but I imagine, from what I've been told, you just make stuff. So I would have had, if someone attacked me with penises, I would just sit down and code and model an anti-penis automatic turret. And and then I would just start popping them out.
This is an arms race with dangerous, dangerous possibilities.
I know.
Think about it. You are thinking that you will design a device whose sole purpose is to seek out and destroy penises.
Mm-hmm. Except my own.
Okay.
Or else that
Okay. Don't ever try to do that in the real world.
No, bad idea.
Even if someone makes some sort of penis replicator and starts filling houses with them.
All right, so this week we haven't really talked about we didn't talk about a specific game yesterday. We didn't really talk about specific technology on Monday. We sort of had topics that were more general. So today, we're not going to talk about an anime, a manga, or a comic. We're going to talk about dubs in general.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about specific studios. We're not going to talk much about specific examples. We're not going to talk about specific voice actors or anything. We're just the idea of dubs and how they affect us and how we feel about them.
Well, for anyone who might be completely stupid, a dub is when you take a show that is technically, a dub is when you have some video and you put audio on it. Yeah. When you're talking about anime, you're talking about, hey, the original audio for this TV show was Japanese people talking. We're going to erase the Japanese talking and put in English talking, and we need to get some English-speaking people to do that talking, and that is a dub.
Now, all factors aside, probably the most annoying thing when it comes to dubs is simply the fact that among the anime community, there's this whole dubs versus subs, made up war.
I mean, I didn't even realize that this war was going on. I mean, when I first discovered anime, and I knew it was anime in high school or whatever, I was watching on Sci-Fi Channel. Everything was dubbed, and I knew intellectually on some level that this was a Japanese thing. And if I would have thought about it for a minute, I would have said, hey, wait a minute. That's not the original voices. There must have been Japanese voices. Something, something. But that never actually occurred to me. I just kind of accepted the dub track and didn't think about it until I went to college, and where it was apparently a big issue that was forced upon me.
Yep. I mean, when we ran the RIT Anime Club, we showed subs as a matter of course, partly because attached to RIT is the National Technical Institute for the Deaf. So as kind of a way to be nice, we just always showed subtitled anime.
Yeah, we could have showed the anime with an English dub and also the subtitles or closed captioning.
Well, yeah, but it was easier to just show a sub. So by doing that, we accommodated the deaf community, and we actually had a good number of deaf members of the club, and everyone was happy.
It was basically, before DVDs, it was extremely more convenient because you couldn't really get the closed captioning to work so well with the VHS.
God.
And the subtitled VHS, you had a Japanese audio track. When the DVDs came around, we had more options, but it didn't care.
Well, see, here's the problem. So once DVDs came around, we want to show a DVD. Several times we decided, hey, this is a good dub. Why don't we just show it dubbed? And the club would immediately split into equal and angry portions. One half would demand that we show the dub because they hated reading subtitles and couldn't keep up with them. And the other half refused to come if we showed a dub because they think that all dubs are terrible and they have some sort of ideological aversion to dubbed anime.
Yeah, well, we stayed with the status quo because of the sub, because that's what we had
Not
been doing
always.
all along.
We
did a couple of times.
Yeah,
not often, though.
And I will note that the reason this whole thing is stupid, these people who care so much about this, was simply that one time we were going to show Hellsing, and we decided that we were going to show it dubbed. And people bitched and bitched and bitched when we announced it the day of. Like, we're about to show Hellsing. We're like, by the way, it's going to be dubbed. And then the lights turn off. And there's an uproar. And everyone's yelling back and forth. And people are like, well, I'm just going to leave. This is crap. I don't want to watch some stupid dub. And they all stayed anyway. And they all watched the show. And at the end, a lot of people noted that the dub was pretty good. And they enjoyed it. And after about 30 seconds worth of watching the show after the opener ended, they stopped complaining entirely.
Yeah, I mean, before I got there to college, like I said, it was a non-issue. Then as soon as I got there, it was the biggest issue in the universe. You know, people made all those usual arguments in favor of subtitles, like, it's not the original, you're losing so much, it's not, you've destroyed the work of art, it's now something else, not what the original was, and, you know, the voice acting is always terrible, blah-blah-blah-blah-blah. You know, you can't look at the characters and what's going on if you're always looking at subtitles, but all those arguments don't seem to matter now, so it's kind of weird to think back that they mattered then, and now, who cares?
Well, see, to me, I hate to say it, but early on, I mean, dubs and subs, my relationship with them has changed a lot over the years. When it started, when I first watched anime, I only saw dubs. And then I started getting anime, and I got a lot of subs for various reasons. And I had trouble watching the subs early on because the Japanese language and the way it's spoken is not like English. So you couldn't really glean a lot of the emotional content. I didn't know what sarcasm sounded like in Japanese, or the difference between someone who's happy or someone who's faking being happy or anything like that. And the language just sounded strange and alien and foreign to me.
Yeah, that is true. I remember, like, the first one or two times I watched a sub, it was kind of just weird and novel in itself to hear so much Japanese being spoken, more than I'd ever heard at one time before. But eventually it was just, oh, all right, I could just do it. And now I still can just watch them.
Well, the thing is then, as I watched more and more subs, I started to get it. I mean, obviously, I didn't learn the language. I still don't know the language.
I still don't know the language.
But you start to, if you watch enough subtitled media, now not just anime, but anything subtitled in a specific language, even if you never learn the language other than random words, you'll start to pick up on general emotional cues or just all the things that, all the subtext and all the things that let you understand the subtle nature of the language without knowing the actual details of what's being said. So you can watch an anime in Japanese with subtitles, but yet you get all of that sarcasm. I just keep using sarcasm as an example.
Yep.
Because you've listened to enough of it to be able to pick those things out. You get a sense of the language. And I think a lot of people who are opposed to watching subtitled things just haven't watched enough subtitled things.
That is something else that before I had ever watched a subtitled show, well, at least a subtitled anime, I'd watched plenty of subtitled things. You know, I didn't really, prefer either way. Then after I watched a bunch of subtitled things and I was able to, get the full subtitled effect, then when I watched a dub, I freaking noticed how it was different. It was like, oh.
Yeah.
It's like a problem that doesn't expose itself until you've seen the solution elsewhere.
Plus, there was the issue back in the day that isn't a matter now where dubs cost less than subs on VHS simply because they knew that people who wanted a sub would pay the extra money no matter what because they didn't want to listen to the dub. And people who didn't care were going to buy the dub anyway. So they basically just extorted extra money out of the fans who wanted a subtitled version.
Yeah, and they also printed a lot fewer subtitled VHS tapes. So lower supply, higher price.
Even though at the local Suncoast, where I bought much of my anime back in the day, way back in the day, they had almost all subtitled anime, and the only dub they had was Ranma.
Well, that was the Suncoast. If you went to, I don't know, somewhere else.
There wasn't anywhere else. There was Blockbuster, where I could watch Harmageddon and Doom Megalopolis over and over again if I wanted.
Yeah, we didn't even have a Suncoast.
Really?
Yeah.
That was where I bought all my anime. Even though I remember paying like $180 for a VHS subtitled box set.
And I didn't even realize anime could be bought legally in a store until like freshman year.
Really?
Yeah, because I had never bought any of it, and then someone had like a Trigun DVD, and I was like, "That's a DVD. It's not a tape from Japan or anything. I could just buy that at the Media Play. Holy shit!" It was amazing.
God, I remember buying Tenchi Muyo, the original OAV. Half of them were subs and half of them were dubs just because. And I bought them over the course of months because I couldn't afford to buy it all at once. Because it was like $30 a tape.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, when I first saw anime and dubs seemed like Vampire Hunter D was awesome. And I didn't even think about it. And I watched subs and I realized that the subs seemed to be a lot better, and the more I started to get the nuances of the Japanese language, the more I liked the subs. Mostly because the sad fact is that most dubs are actually really piss poor.
Well, you know, a lot of people say this, and it's absolutely true, is that you can be in another room, and you can just be listening to whatever's on the television, and you don't even have to hear a single word, and you can tell if that's an anime dub on in the other room.
Yep, we've tried this. We've tested this in numerous occasions.
Like, you could just have someone, like, with a bunch of, like, 5-second MP3s, and one of them contains, like, Godzilla, one of them contains who knows, and you just play one of them, and someone will say, anime dub, not anime dub. Anime dub, not anime dub. They have this distinct sound to them that's, I don't know, it's generally unpleasant.
Yep, it seems to carry across to a lot of cartoons, too. I mean, in general, you can always tell between cartoon live action without seeing the screen. With the possible exception of Cowboy Bebop.
Well, yeah. That's the thing, is that dubbing doesn't have to be bad. I mean, it usually is worse than subtitles in most cases, but it doesn't have to be. It's very possible for dubs to be as good as or better than the original Japanese audio track, because a lot of times Japanese has shitty voice actors too in the original, so you can beat them out with better English voice actors.
I mean, it might be due partly or possibly wholly to nostalgia, but I have watched Urusei Yatsura 2, Beautiful Dreamer, probably 20 times in my life, if not more. It's my favorite movie, hands down. And despite that, I've seen it subbed and dubbed, but I prefer the dub to this day, despite known inaccuracies in it. There are absolute inaccuracies that I've noticed, that I have researched, and that I don't worry about because I think the dub is hilarious, and I find some of the voice acting on the sub to be annoying. And this is even now after I've gotten enough of an ear to kind of know what good Japanese voice acting sounds like.
Well, I think that is a lot due to nostalgia. I mean, on the weekly anime review, he played a short clip from the old Akira dub, right?
Oh, the Akira dub.
Right, so the really old Akira dub, not the newer one, because there are 2 Akira dubs. Mm-hmm. And I listened to it, and it was like this sledgehammer that was half nostalgia and half, good God, is that terrible.
It's like watching Robotech again.
It's like, well, Robotech's not. It's like watching He-Man. It's like, oh, there's He-Man. Oh, it's bad. You know, and it's like, I had this strong feeling for it combined with a strong feeling against it, like it shouldn't exist, but it's a part of me. God damn it. And it's pretty terrible.
I mean, I don't want to give any disrespect to American anime voice actors, but I just don't understand how dubs can be the way they are. It seems like they go through eras where, like, if you listen to anime back in the day, like Slayer, like the era when Slayers was really popular in the U.S., all the dubs kind of sound the same. And now listen to anime today. All the dubs kind of sound the same. But they don't sound the same as the dubs from before. In fact, I'd say that a lot of them are in some ways worse.
Well, I think, actually, I give the voice actors credit because I'm not going to go into great detail on how the dubs are made and all that jazz. But
yeah, I got a rant about how dubs are made.
I get the impression that some of the dubs, they do put a lot of time and effort into, and they spend a lot of money to make sure they're awesome. But most of them, they try to hack them out, just do a serviceable job. And back in the day, when they would do that for martial arts movies, you would get what you would expect.
What are you doing? Oh, no.
You would get, go watch your Bruce Lee movie's original dub. It's just ass. It's completely useless, And I think what's actually going on is that most, not the big time anime, but most of the anime, they're putting as much time and effort and money into the dubs as they did into those bad Bruce Lee dubs. Yet the product, while still not satisfactory to us fans, to us crazy fans, it's a lot better than what you would normally get putting in that amount of time and effort and work. So I do think that they are, they're doing the best job that they can under the circumstances.
Yeah, see, I don't think it's the voice actor's fault. I think that it's the direction that they get, and to an extent, sometimes the writing done by the translators.
Well, and it's also the anime companies for not trying to make their dubs awesome. They're just trying to get the dub done like it's their job instead of trying to do good art on the dub, trying to make a good one.
And I think a lot of it would have to do, though I hope things are changing, but a lot of older dubs I know in America, the philosophy was totally different. And in Japan, a lot of times they were dubbing a show, they'd have a whole bunch of people, like all the actors from a scene, in one room or in somehow just doing all the acting, playing off of each other in real time and record the whole thing in one shot. Where in America, a lot of times they would tend to record each individual voice actor's lines by themselves. They'd basically be playing off of nothing or off of the recording that the other person already made. And because it seems like a lot of dubs in America either lack energy entirely, like there's no energy or flow to them, or they have this super tacked on fake energy that gets to the point where it's just so annoying I can't listen to it.
Yeah, the emotions definitely aren't natural, and they don't seem to match up between characters and scenes very well.
Also, and I say this to this day, and I'm not sure, I mean, I couldn't come up with a lot of examples, but it seems like there are things or concepts that you can put forth or get across or say in Japanese that don't sound cheesy in Japanese, because it's the kind of thing people would say. But yet if you say those things translated literally into English, or not even literally, but even just the meaning behind them, to our American Western ears, they sound really lame or cheesy because people just don't say things like that.
Yeah,
here.
this is actually more of an issue in manga adaptations, but it's still an issue in anime. Is that a big complaint of dubs I remember from freshman year when they, all those crazy sub-Nazis, they would say, the dub isn't the original meaning. They change it. It's not what was, you're losing something.
No, you've got to change it.
It's not a direct translation. And then, later I realized, wait a minute, you can't directly translate. It's not possible. Sometimes, if they tell some Japanese, and if someone says in America, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, how do you translate that to Japanese?
Well, you say
say
a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. You translate it literally, and
they might not understand what the hell does that mean. You have to come up with the equivalent Japanese, thing. It's sort of like,
or you leave it in and let people learn about it.
It depends on the show.
Yeah,
usually.
It does. Like Irresponsible Captain Tyler, you could not do that because those puns were just out there.
Yeah, like Azumanga Daioh, it's kind of way out there. And actually, Azumanga Daioh is a good example for this whole thing because in that show, you could go on either road. You could either choose to leave everything in there literally and then use the show to teach the American audience about all this weird Japanese puns and jokes and, all this manzai comedy stuff going on. Or you could take it out and just translate it into something that makes sense in English. And either way works. It's just a decision you have to make at the beginning.
Yep. I mean, I guess if a dub is done well, like if a show is dubbed really well, it's done well, then I consider the sub and dub to be equal because they're two very different things now. The sub is the original Japanese voice acting with a very literal translation of what they're saying underneath. Because the subtitle now, if you're subtitling something, doesn't need to be eloquent spoken. It just needs to convey all the information that the person is saying. So you can have a very novelized style, very literal, very direct translation of what they're saying. And even if the phrasing is a little awkward, it doesn't matter because you're reading it while you listen to them talk. But in a dub, they definitely have to change it a lot more to make it come across naturally. But the dub...
Also, another thing dubs all seem to do is they seem more concerned with matching the character's lips than I think they should be.
Yeah, I remember I saw a thing a long time ago. Someone demonstrated at some con. I think it was actually... No, it wasn't Ohio Con. It might have been a Katsucon. It wasn't that. I don't know when it was. But I remember seeing a little short clip where it showed a dub and a sub and how the dub matched the voice perfect, like the lips perfectly. The person talking, everything they said, every syllable matched what the mouth was doing in the anime. But yet in the Japanese original, it didn't match at all. And the person kept talking for a full second after the person's mouth stopped moving. And you know what? They were both fine. So why bother trying to match it up if it doesn't even matter?
That is one thing I think that could be fixed with a lot of American dubs of anime right now is they do seem, even when it's not like a big-time production dub, like, I don't know, Cowboy Bebop or Ghost in the Shell or anything like that, when it's a smaller show and they're obviously not spending a whole lot of time and money on this dub, they still try really hard to match those lips, and they seem to make sacrifices in other areas in order to achieve that. And that's really not the thing you have to concentrate on the most. You should concentrate on having the dialogue be better to make the show as good as you possibly can, and making the characters sound right. Oh,
going back a bit, I just thought of a perfect example for my thing I was saying about awkward phrases or things that don't sound right to our Western ears. You know, a lot of times in anime, someone will say something that translates to, do your best. No one says that here. No one would ever yell that to anyone. They'd yell something like, good luck, or don't fuck up.
It.
Go! Woo!
Exactly.
But what do you do now? If you translate it literally, then it sounds lame. I mean, it's not lame. The meaning's there, but it sounds lame. If you translate it in a creative way, the fans get mad because it wasn't a literal translation.
Mm-hmm.
And they claim that you lose something, when really, depending on the situation, you don't lose anything.
You don't lose anything as long as the writing is good.
Yeah, and the voice acting is good.
Yep.
But anyway, part of the reason we did this show was that we didn't feel like reviewing anything, and we're tired, and the holidays are coming up. So I don't know what you can expect us to talk about tomorrow.
I don't freaking know at all.
Yeah, I'm going to bed. Though I will say one last thing, and we're plugging this all week. If you are not a member of Dig, I recommend that you become a member of Dig.
DIGG.com. 2 G's.
You'll be pleasantly surprised because Dig is quite awesome. And 2, Dig Podcast has been unveiled very recently. And it is leaps and bounds better than any other podcast directory known to man, with a possible exception of iTunes, but iTunes has its own issues.
Yeah, so if you're using some podcast directory like Yahoo Podcasts or Plug D or
Podcast Pickle, Podcast Alley,
any weird podcast directory, stop using that shit and use Dig Podcast.
Yeah, I mean,
Dig Podcast is awesome.
Podcast Alley and all that. Do you really want us to tell you every couple weeks to go there and vote for us? When if you go to Dig, you vote for a podcast you like once ever. Your vote lasts forever. So you don't have to be annoying and ask people to vote for you constantly.
Yeah, and it's not like we ask people to vote for us anyway.
Yeah. However, if you are a Dig user and you like Geeknights, if you go and dig us, it is only going to make us more popular. We're already #1 on Dig if you search for anime or video game, or not video games, but anime or manga or comics.
Yeah, don't feel obligated to do this because you're not, but whatever. I'm just letting you know it's there. We also have a botnet. If you really, if you want to, make 100 accounts and spam Dig and dig Geeknights 1,000 times, you can totally join our botnet or it's open.
What Scott means by botnet is that all the people in our forums, which are actually very rocking, and I highly recommend you check them out, have decided to all make each other friends in Dig. And as a result, Geeknights and the Front Row crew and all of the cool people associated therein, by all being friends officially, like as per the code within Dig, tend to dig each other's things up, and it's getting to be where anything that anyone in our forums likes gets a gigantic boost on Dig. So if you like Geeknights and you join our forums and you join this collective Dig body, you will have more of an influence onto internet. Unless you're lame, and then no one will dig the things you dig.
Just look for the green flags with the star.
Yes.
And then let your mouse hover over them for a second so you can see who dug it.
Yeah. I will also note that some of our overzealous listeners seem to be going through the motions of digging every single episode of our show.
Okay. Good luck with that.
I'll just ask you, if you're going to dig individual episodes of Geeknights, that's cool. I'm not going to say you shouldn't. But only dig the ones that you think are above average or particularly good. Because if someone digs every episode of Geeknights, then that really defeats the purpose.
Yeah, whatever. I don't care what the hell people do. I just use Dig Podcast so that we can get all these other podcast directories out of business because they're useless and they're terrible and they suck.
Yeah, and then phase 2 is putting all these other podcasts out of business. And then when we're the only podcast in the world,
No one will care about podcasts anymore.
Yeah, after the nuclear holocaust when the dinosaurs come back.
Oh, damn dinosaurs.
Fucking dinosaurs. This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com, where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via Odeo. Just click the link that says Send Me an Odeo on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.